I used to make a good living hauling freight through the crossing. As soon as people settled here, they'd find there's all kinds of things they needed. Furs, flour, window glass, chickens. I've hauled it all, from Swift Current through the Peace Hills to Edmonton, and then all the way back. When the CPR came to Calgary, it cut my time on the trail in half. Good thing, too. Us freighters had as much business as we could handle, just going from Calgary to Edmonton and back. It only made sense to build a house here, halfway between. I was the first to settle here, but I sure wasn't the last. Now the railway has expanded again. Expanded me right out of business. Sure, the train is faster. It used to take me 10 days one way, if the weather was good. Just between us, I think that's how folks first came to settle here. After a week in a wagon, with sleet dripping down your neck, you want to stop at the first decent place you come to. Nowadays, the train makes it easy. People are coming from all over, homesteading, setting up fancy new businesses. It's starting to look like a regular town around the railway station. No one comes through the crossing anymore, probably afraid of getting their feet wet. This used to be the busiest place for miles. In 20 years, I learned the name of every character who used the crossing. They don't come here anymore, and I sure miss them.
For generations, the Indians of the Western Prairies forded the Red Deer River here. They lived a nomadic life, following the great herds of buffalo. Then, that life changed forever. European fashion demanded furs. The Indians became embroiled in the trading network that stretched west to Rupert's Land. The Indians made good use of European goods, but they suffered in return. Almost half the natives of the District of Alberta were wiped out by smallpox, measles, and other epidemics. In 1857, Captain John Palliser led his expedition westward. They passed through the Red Deer River Valley and reported to Ottawa about the good agricultural land near the crossing. But it was all under the control of the Hudson's Bay Company. The Dominion government was anxious to consolidate its position in the west, so it annexed all the land right up to the Continental Divide, and settlers started to move west. It was the Métis, offspring of marriages between the fur traders and the Indians, who suffered from the expansion westward. As settlers encroached on their land, they moved farther and farther west, following the dwindling buffalo herds. Until the 1880s, families of Métis spent the winter along the Red Deer River. It was one of the last bastions of a lifestyle wholly dependent on the buffalo. A lifestyle that was rapidly becoming obsolete. The government needed homesteads for the ever-increasing numbers of settlers. They took over lands that the Métis considered to be theirs. The result was inevitable: rebellion.
There must have been 30 people living here when a messenger arrived with news about Frog Lake. He told us all to head down to Fort Calgary for the safety of the women. It made sense because we figured something was up. Usually the Indians around here were peaceable enough, but they were on the side of the Métis, and they have been kind of aggressive. One day, about dinner time, a couple of them walked into the Gates house and demanded supper, and they didn't leave their guns at the door either. Turns out there was no real trouble, but we were worried. So we all decided that it was safer to leave for Calgary the next day. It was a scared group that met at the trading post. The Indians that were camped around the store came running up. They never said a word, just watched. I tell you, driving away was the hardest thing I've ever done. Not knowing if I'd live to come back, and not knowing if there'd be anything to come back to.
The government appointed General Middleton to put down the rebellion. Middleton, in turn, persuaded a Calgary rancher, Major General Thomas Bland Strange, to take charge of the District of Alberta. Strange organized the Alberta Field Force, and within 2 weeks deployed nearly 1,000 men north from Fort Calgary. Because of the Indians and Métis at the Red Deer Crossing, 20 men of the 65th Mount Royal Rifles were stationed there under the command of Lieutenant Normandeau. They fortified the site in anticipation of battle, and the settlers returned to their homes.
Nobody was more surprised than Robert McClellan when the army requisitioned his brand new hotel and proceeded to turn it into a fort. We all clutched our guns and waited for something to happen. Well, nothing did. The rebellion never made it much past Saskatchewan. And the next we heard, Riel had been captured. The closest the detachment came to active duty was guarding the occasional supply shipment. Those soldiers were good business. Most people around here profited from them. At the store, Ray Gates could hardly get enough supplies in, but they still owe me $80. When the brouhaha had all died down, the Northwest Mounted Police took over McClellan's hotel. I mean, Fort Normandeau. I didn't do too bad from them either. There was always something had to be hauled in from Calgary or shipped up to Edmonton. Then came the settlers, and business got even better. With the stagecoaches, the Royal Mail, and all of us freighters, that trail was getting crowded. They're moving here from all over. Eastern Canada, the States, even Sweden. It's only been 6 years, but a lot of people don't even know who Riel was. Things change. Now the railway has muscled in and taken away my business. The crossing isn't good enough for them. They have to build their bridge downriver. And of course that's where people want to settle. Everyone's leaving the crossing and moving to the new town. I guess I probably will too. I'll miss this place. Too quiet here now. Red Deer. Aye, they're going to need the likes of me to make it work. I wonder if one of the Gates boys would buy a wagon.